The latest. Thank you for your love and support. I appreciate you all. G20 is the first time we are hosting it on our soil here in Africa, and our leaders are also proving to the world that we are capable of anything at all that any other person can do. And they are using it as an opportunity to call out the injustice that the world is meted out on the Africans. According to the president of Namibia, Natambo Ndantua, we are not beggars. Africans, we are not going anywhere to beg. It's just that we are calling for fair treatment. They should give us the same financial treatment they are giving to the other people, and Africa, we will be able to match up to whatever that the world is doing. That the unfair treatment on Africa is the reason to which Africa is treated this way. And sometimes they have the perception that it is risky to come into the continent to invest. But with all that we have, what makes it risky? We have everything that it takes, but it's just that the systems that they've kept in place to put Africa away from competing on the global stage is the reason to which we are where we are, and and they've made it to look as if Africa, we cannot do anything but rather coming out to beg.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. Namibia thank and congratulate Your Excellency President Ramaphosa, the government and the people of South Africa for bringing G20 to Africa, placing Africa's concern in the agenda of the summit, and for the kind invitation extended to my country. Guided by the African Union Agenda 2063 and the UN Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development, the importance of addressing development priority from the African perspective cannot be overemphasized. Developing countries find themselves on debt trap as a result of capital high cost for developing countries based on the perceived risk that does not reflect the reality on the ground. In the face of unfair financing terms, recently Namibia honored its international obligation by redeeming its 750 million Euro bond on time, signifying strong fiscal responsibilities. However, we are considered by decision makers as a risk country. We need a fair international financial institutions. Being the most meaningful way, we can place people at the heart of sustainable development. Our focus on advancing the transformation of global governance must be underpinned by the common understanding that only an inclusive and representative international system will have the capacity to respond to the present-day challenges. If our financial architecture is not fit for the purpose, we will continue to see the pressure of a looming global debt crisis that intensified imbalance between developed and developing countries. We are not seeking for free money. We want a fair and equal financing opportunities. For Namibia to grow and industrialize our economy, Namibia is welcoming investors to invest on value addition at source for our natural resources, including critical minerals, to yield a broad-based benefit for all our people. To leave no one behind, countries must mobilize adequate resources for development, apply responsible debt management, and safeguard resources for essential social and economic programs such as education, health, and infrastructures. Namibia urges the G20 leaders to strengthen debt treatment framework by providing concessional financing to countries that demonstrate commitment to sound debt management and to be innovative in strengthening others. As we strive towards reducing inequality within and among countries, fair taxation, financial inclusion, and social protection are essential tools. In Namibia, social protection coverage has expanded with old age grants reaching 98% of eligible citizens, and children grants stand at 66% of vulnerable children. These measures ensure that vulnerable groups that include people living with disability are supported in the path to prosperity. It also allows women and youth to play their role in development. As I conclude, I can say let us reaffirm our shared commitment to inclusive and sustainable economic growth guided by the SDGs by focusing on 3 pillars. 1, strengthening trade-drive economies. 2, securing financial for development while responsible managing debts and reducing inequality through inclusive policies. And all these are talking to the theme of this conference, which we really very much welcome, namely solidarity, equality, and sustainability. Thank you for your kind attention.
Distinguished leaders, ladies and gentlemen, I want to start by congratulating our host for being a great host, especially for the warmth and hospitality that he has extended to us. And I'll bring you warm greetings from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. The region is currently celebrating its golden anniversary in recognition of various achievements, but also reflecting on the future of the community. We gather here to make important decisions on trade, finance for development, and the existential debt burden. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, trade is not just about goods crossing borders, but about creating opportunities in Africa for over 1.4 billion people and providing opportunities to create employment and wealth. In Africa, we are committed to boosting intra-African trade through effective implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, a system that empowers small businesses, connects landlocked communities, and unlocks regional value chains. However, we cannot do it alone. We call on G20 to 1, reform global trade rules to ensure fair access for African exports. 2, invest in trade facilitation, digital corridors, and green logistics. 3, support the full implementation of FTAs, such as the AfCFTA, especially for the effective participation of women and youth entrepreneurs. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, development finance must move from charity to strategy. Africa does not lack ambition, but affordable capital. The cost of borrowing for many of our countries is up to 8 times higher for advanced countries. We urge G20 to 1, scale up concessional finance and blended instruments for climate resilience, digital infrastructure, and urban transformation. 2, empower national and subnational institutions with direct access to global capital markets. 3, champion innovative tools like diaspora bonds carbon credit, and SDG-linked instruments that reflect Africa's realities. Scale up climate finance commitments. Africa contributes, as we all know, less than 4% to global emissions, yet bears the highest climate cost. G20 must support the realization of the 100 billion climate finance pledge and accelerate access to loss and damage fund. To advance global peace and security, the G20 must lead the effort to redress the issues of increasing global poverty, economic inequality, and justice, which feeds global security challenges. G20 must work to evolve a more peaceful world in which prosperity and advancement for all is a global goal. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, today over 20 African countries face high risk of debt distress, not necessarily due to reckless borrowing, but because we borrow in a structurally unjust system. The cost of borrowing and servicing for many African countries is prohibitively high, thereby diverting funds from crucial sectors such as health, education, and infrastructure, as has been alluded to by many already. The G20's common framework must evolve. We need, 1, timely, transparent, and equitable debt restructuring across all creditor classes, intercreditor burden sharing and binding timelines, access to concessional finance and capital on fairer terms, a new debt climate development compact that links relief to resilience, addressing issues like illicit financial flows, profit shifting, and marginalization in global value chains is crucial for long-term solutions. We offer the following recommendations. We propose the establishment of a task force on trade and finance for structural transformation. 2, we call on multilateral development banks to create dedicated credit lines for regional and urban development. We urge the summit to adopt a multi-pronged approach on fiscal space, financial innovation, and institutional capacity as the foundation of a new global economic architecture. And finally, we call for a recommitment to the multilateral trading system that we are used to. Thank you.
Thank you, President.
Let me at the outset express appreciation to His Excellency President Matameta Cyril Ramaphosa for the warm reception in this beautiful city of Johannesburg. May I further use this opportunity to congratulate him on the successes of the South Africa G20 presidency, including his purposeful leadership in steering the affairs of the group in a number of processes and negotiations which will culminate in a leader's declaration. Nigeria, as one of the invited guest countries of this year's G20 summit, commends the concerted efforts of the group in mobilizing action towards accelerated attainment of inclusive sustainable growth, where financing for development is guaranteed and no one or country is left behind. The theme of the session 1 of the Leaders Summit, inclusive and sustainable economic growth, leaving no one behind, building our economies, the role of trade, financing for development, and the debt burden is apt and speaks to the challenges of developing countries. The current multilateral frameworks do not adequately reflect the realities of today's world. Many developing nations continue to face systematic barriers to economic growth, trade, and financial inclusivity. For trade to be truly inclusive, the G20 must take bold steps towards reforming the international financial architecture and global institutions. Only a more equitable and effective system can fairly manage global financial flows, address recurring debt crises, and respond to the needs of all nations, especially those in the global south. Africa cannot realize the positive paradigm shift we seek in its development trajectory without a collective resolve of the G20. Together, we must confront the persistent regional challenges before us, most notably the urgent need for sustainable financing to ensure effective implementation of our developmental priorities. Across many regions, rising debt burdens continue to constrain economic progress and transform local challenges into global vulnerabilities. Ensuring debt sustainability while responsibly leveraging critical minerals for inclusive and enduring development must remain central priorities for the G20. The G20 must, in the adoption of the Leaders' Declaration, take very seriously the need to advance policies that drive sustainable growth, promote financial inclusion, and tackle emerging risk. This includes support for indigenous production, export from Africa, and mechanism to enhance significant increase in FDI flows to the African region. Nigeria has in recent times demonstrated its readiness for both foreign direct and portfolio investments. This progress is driven in part by the fiscal policies introduced by the present administration, all aimed at enhancing the ease of doing business in Nigeria. We are committed to establishing 1,000 active businesses in each ward in Nigeria with a clear objective of stimulating our local economy through grassroots empowerment, skills acquisition, and job creation. We commend the efforts of the World Trade Organization and its leadership for providing technical assistance to boost fair trade, including through the Women Exporters in the Digital Economy Fund launched in 2024. This initiative has provided grants and technical support to women entrepreneurs and strengthened their digital capabilities and access to global markets. Mr. President, as I conclude, I reaffirm Nigeria's unalloyed commitment to the G20. Let us continue to work side by side, shaping an economic future that uplifts every nation and leaves no one or country behind. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice President. I now ask His Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, His Excellency Constantino Chiwenga, to take the floor.
Your Excellency President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, Your Excellencies, Zimbabwe joins others to thank the presidents of South Africa's G20 chair. Excellencies, Zimbabwe appreciates the opportunity to engage with the G20 as we collectively chart a trajectory towards inclusive and sustainable economic growth. Over the past few years, our global economies have faced multiple shocks and geopolitical tensions that have disrupted global supply chains. Our shared vision should therefore be one of building resilient and innovative economies that deliver prosperity for all. In Zimbabwe, our national strategy is firmly aligned with the 2030 Agenda and the African Union's Agenda 2063. Our focus is on one, value addition industrialization by moving up global value chain, and two, human capital development by creating decent jobs, empowering youth and women, strengthening and formalizing SMEs as essential drivers for inclusive growth. And three, structural reforms by enhancing the ease of doing business, including the use of artificial intelligence, strengthening governance, and improving transparency across value chains. and 4, climate resilience, accelerating investments in renewable energy, decarbonization, climate adaptation, and water security to safeguard our development trajectory from systematic shocks. Excellencies, the G20 must reinforce a fair and transparent multilateral trading system under the World Trade Organization. Equally, critical is addressing the major challenge of assessing affordable and sustainable finance. We welcome efforts to reform the international financial system and propose recapitalization of multilateral development banks to expand concessional and climate finance. 2, promotion of innovative financing through active re-promotion of mechanisms such as the green bonds, blended finance, and diaspora investments. And 3rd, curbing illicit flows and by strengthening efforts against illicit financial flows, tax evasion, and profit shifting to enhance domestic resource mobilization in developing countries. The growing debt burden continues to constrain development. Many nations are forced to choose between servicing debt and funding essential social services. We urgently need a comprehensive and equitable debt resolution approach. We encourage innovative solutions such as debt for climate, debt for development swaps. These measures are crucial to restoring debt sustainability while supporting long-term growth and resilience. Furthermore, the G20 Common Framework for Debt Treatments requires significant strengthening. In view of this, Zimbabwe seeks inclusion and active participation in an improved G20 Common Framework for the debt treatment process. We are ready to engage constructively to that end. The journey for inclusive and sustainable growth demands political will and an unwavering commitment to equitable development. Let us reaffirm our collective commitment to building a stronger, fairer, greener, and more humane global economy.
So our leaders are shaking the tables. They are making these people to understand and calling out the injustice that these people have meted out on the African for all these years. We know that there's nothing that we cannot do as Africans, but it is the systematic things that they've kept in place to keep the African backwards. That is the reason to which Africa, we are where we are. But everything that these people can do, we can do and do it better. And we know the reason to which these people are doing that because of their resources. They never want the African to have the ability and to match up with them, because they know when we are able to do that, whatever they are getting in Africa will come to an end. And our leaders, we are always calling on them to also do something that we are looking for, and that is unity. The moment we are able to unite as Africans, it will be very difficult for other people to penetrate here to do whatever they want to do. With all the resources that we have in the continent, we should be able to decide what we think is best for us. Like we are seeing other countries, the leaders saying that they will not come simply because it is hosted in Africa, and Cyril Ramaphosa has invited a lot of people and they do not like it. Instead of G20, it's becoming G100. G100, which is something that at least we shouldn't be seeing. And look at the way they even spoke to the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, which they dare not do when it comes to other world leaders, but they can talk to any African leader the way they want in this 21st century. And that is why I always And that is why Africa, we need to unite. Dividing ourselves into smaller nations isn't going to help us, and it will never help us. For all these years that we have been divided as a people, we've seen that this division is what is keeping us backwards. Look at the population of China, but these people are all together under one leadership, under one army. So until the Africans start to do that, we will never get anywhere. And we don't look like beggars. We have everything it takes. We are feeding the world, because everything that they need, they take it from here, and that is the reason to which they are making sure that we never unite. And we have to prove to these people that we are capable, even with their system that they've kept in place, by uniting. The moment we come together as a people, remove all the borders and trade more among ourselves, they will have no other option than to treat us the way they are treating other people. The systems of these people hasn't been fair to the African, so we need to make sure that we unite to be able to break away from the systems that these people have kept in place. There is nothing we cannot do for ourselves as Africans, and there is nothing we cannot achieve, and we have to work together as a people so we can be able to defeat what other people have done, and we will be able to compete on the global stage. We have to prove to the world that we are capable, and that will only come from the unity of Africa. If we should become one people under one umbrella with one economy, this way is going to help us very much. So we Africans, we can do it, but it's just that we need to see ourselves as one people and be able to undo what was done on us for all these centuries that aren't in our favor. United we stand, divided we fall, and united we keep standing forever and ever. The greatest enemy of the African is mental slavery. So let's decolonize ourselves from mental slavery. Let's keep sharing to educate our brothers and sisters. Together we make African great for ourselves and the next generations that are going to come. So that's the latest around the world, in Africa, Southern Africa, and in Namibia.